How's it going, everyone? My name is The Stark, so welcome back to another The Last of Us Part 3 video. Apparently, The Last of Us Part 3 is in development, despite reports suggesting otherwise. In November of 2022, well-known leaker Viewer Non, who has a solid track record, posted that The Last of Us Part 3 was in production. This news gave fans of the game a lot of hope, but with the recent hype around the new, well-received HBO show, co-creator Neil Druckmann stated that they'd only go ahead with Part 3 if they had a story that was good enough to tell. We've been hearing talks about a third entry being in the works since November, and the fact that the budget depends on the success of the show, but these rumors remained unsubstantiated. The show's success and high viewership would suggest more people are willing to play the game. We've seen this happen before when Witcher 3 sales spiked after the Netflix series came out. As such, a successful show would have an important role to play in terms of development of The Last of Us Part 3 because it's proof to continued and/or developed interest. Neil Druckmann has also previously stated that a storyline was written. Now, our source at Sony, who previously broke the first leak of the PlayStation 5 Slim to us, has doubled down and revealed to us that it is indeed in the works, at least according to Sony. Internally, Sony has the title slated as, quote, in progress, with Naughty Dog as the developer, with the game is categorized as a PlayStation 5 release with, quote, PlayStation 6 in mind. Now, on the website I'm reading this from, it's the leak.co, and they talk a little bit in depth about PlayStation 6 and why people might be worried about this new Last of Us being on PlayStation 6, stating PlayStation 6 release might be due to one simple reason: a AAA title which can take up to at least 4 years to develop, while a console generation lasts approximately 5 years. If Sony has it marked down as a game with, quote, PlayStation 6 in mind, it might indicate that the game will be released at the end of the PlayStation 5 lifecycle with an improved version set for its follow-up console, similar to how the original was released, but this time prepared for next generation consoles. Game development cycles are much longer now, and that can't be ignored. As Jason Schreier puts it, quote, fun fact, video game production cycles have gotten so long that if a big budget game studio started working on a brand new project today, it would likely be for the PlayStation 6. End quote. And that's pretty much it for the article. There was a lot of other tweets out there regarding The Last of Us Part 3 and how it might actually be in development, despite what reports have been saying recently. And I find all of this very interesting and kind of timely, because I believe it was Neil Druckmann who said that, as the article said earlier, that that of course, Naughty Dog would only go ahead with Part 3 if they had enough story to tell. And what's funny about all of this now is there's this sudden leak that seems to suggest that The Last of Us Part 3 is actually happening, in spite of what Neil Druckmann and even Troy Baker has said on the record. Now, obviously, game development is a very strenuous and and very long process. It takes many years to develop these AAA games, especially at the caliber and I guess the grand scale of Naughty Dog as a company, which we obviously have to recognize, because Naughty Dog is AAA developers and they make great games, and it takes a long time for them to develop these games. So we have to acknowledge that fact. And obviously, as I said in my previous videos, that perhaps Neil Druckmann is playing like this, quote, like, I guess, this damage control, but which is kind of funny because damage hasn't really been done yet. But the idea is, hey, we're not working on The Last of Us Part 3. Don't worry about The Last of Us Part 3. We have factions, and for now, that's all I can say. And then in 2-3 years from now, when they do finally announce The Last of Us Part 3, it'll go against, essentially, a lot of people would be shocked and surprised, because Neil Druckmann said they weren't working on it. And that's what I said in my video. It's like, listen, if Naughty Dog decides to go ahead with The Last of Us Part 3, which I'm sure they will, in spite of what I've said earlier, with the fact that obviously, Naughty Dog has these creative freedoms that Sony grants them, that PlayStation grants them. And if they believe that they can't tell a story for Part 3, it's not going to happen. In spite of all of the success and financial earnings that the Last of Us franchise has over the many years accumulated, if Naughty Dog can't tell a story or isn't confident in telling one, The Last of Us Part 3 just will not happen. And so it's interesting now that this leak apparently seems to suggest that The Last of Us Part 3 is happening. It is in development, and we're going to get it. Fans are going to get it. Fans are going to enjoy it. likely because Naughty Dog is at the forefront of its development, which is exciting. I mean, if these leaks have any merit to it, I am, as a fan of The Last of Us, extremely excited for this to happen. But I don't know if it actually will. But I suppose only time will tell, and it's hard to make these videos kind of speculating and talking about these simple leaks and these little things regarding The Last of Us. But ultimately, I am excited. You know, I am a fan of Naughty Dog and their work, and if they have PlayStation 6 in mind, then, like I've been saying, if The Last of Us Part 3 ever does happen, it'll be many years until we get it. I want to say maybe 2026, 2027. And of course, I'm sure we're going to get The Last of Us factions within the next year or two, which will occupy a lot of that space and time. But a part of me is also really excited for Naughty Dog to kind of to essentially have The Last of Us and put it to rest and make something new, make something different and creative that isn't The Last of Us or Uncharted or their previous things like Crash Bandicoot or Jax, which I don't think they'll ever revisit anytime soon. And if they do, I'd be disappointed because I need Naughty Dog to make a new IP. I think they have so much talent, and for them to just kind of milk, I don't like saying that they're milking it, because obviously The Last of Us and Uncharted are extremely great IPs, but essentially I want Naughty Dog to make something, I want them to do something different and new, that would get me excited as a fan of their studio. But yeah, here we have it. Apparently The Last of Us Part 3 is in development, and obviously, you know, I'm sure people were probably mixed on this, because I know a lot of people really like the Last of Us franchise, but some, like myself, recognize that Naughty Dog should put it to rest and work on something new and different, and create these awesome stories in a different world and realm, and give us new characters to fall in love with and explore their characterization and identity and narratives. And listen, I love Naughty Dog, so I'm excited anyway. But here we have it. The Last of Us Part 3 is apparently in the works, despite what reports have been saying. I'll leave the link to this website in the description below. Of course, I am curious to know everyone else's thoughts regarding The Last of Us Part 3. Do you think it's happening? If so, what do you think the narrative will be? Do you think it's going to be this redemption story between Ellie and Abby and this kind of dual narrative approach that Naughty Dog did with the previous Last of Us Part 2 game? Or do you think it'll be centered around just Ellie and her exploration in the world and finding redemption as a lone wolf, and then hopefully Abby makes a return and see how that conflict reemerges? Of course, let me know all of that in the comment section below, and of course, with everything being said, I've been the Starks. Peace.